What do pastors do that lose their passion? They go to a blues bar, right? And that's where it started.
Welcome to Conversations. My name is Emma.
And I'm Ginny.
And we wanted to share a little bit about why we're doing this podcast together. We have had the privilege to hear a lot of stories that have encouraged us, inspired us, and challenged us. And we really want to share some of those stories with you. Now, in our first episode, we meet Dr. Al Dayhoff. He is the executive director of Evangelize Today, who calls himself the Tattoo Story Hunter.
Tattoo Story Hunter.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, let's find out.
Dr. Al Dayhoff, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good to be here.
You know, you're a very first guest, so that makes you super important, right?
Well, I feel super important being part of this adventure with Ginny and you.
So let's jump right in. You're the director of Evangelism Today Ministries, and you call yourself a tattoo story hunter. Is that something you've always done, or tell us a little bit about that?
Well, 30 years ago, I planted a church in the Washington, D.C. area, and sort of was textbook, right? Started in a fast food restaurant, started in a school, and then went to a bigger school, and we grew, and then we built this big building, and it filled right up. But what I noticed is it filled up with church people, and we just basically vacuumed up a bunch of church people from all my friends' churches. By the way, I would go to a pastor's lunch, and we were the new shiny thing, and we just vacuumed up all their people. And I had to go to that lunch later that month, right? And kind of sit there because all their people were sitting in my building.
You got the evil eye?
Yeah. And I just said, what is wrong with this picture? And the dissidence inside of me, I had been walking on Christian carpet, doing Christian handshakes, drinking Christian coffee, which is all good until it's not. And I just needed something different for the final trimester of my life, but I didn't know how to get there. And I saw a blues bar halfway between my church and my home. And so what do pastors do that lose their passion? They go to a blues bar, right? And that's where it started.
So tell us, when you went into the blues bar, how the first tattoo found you.
So I sat in a bar for 3 years and didn't talk. And I discovered one big thing that I have to go back and relearn again and again. It's not something I just get. It's this discovery. When I listened, things in my bar tended to go well. When I talked, not so much. And one of the reasons why I kept going back is because of what the people were saying. They were giving me all the ground intelligence of their soul. They were just talking out loud. And, the first big discovery that I made is people weren't asking the questions that I was giving answers to. And that was interesting. And then one day I realized this bar was my next assignment. And I'm like, really? I go from khakis and a blazer and a robe to sitting in a bar, right? It could have been a slower process, right? Because I didn't know how to sit in a bar. I didn't know how to do all that. But when it became evident that this was my next assignment, my eyes opened and I saw something. I saw something on people's skin. And my bar is not full of down and outers. It's actually the people that run the world. Up here in DC. I didn't care that I didn't care about tattoos, right? I didn't have any then. I was like, does your mom know about that? Right? And Ginny and Emma, the only construct I was given in my education was, do I agree or disagree with a tattoo? I was unable to get to the construct, what are they? Until I was embedded. And I asked a lady on the corner of the bar, does your tattoo have a story? And she was full of them. And for 90 minutes, she told me all her secrets. she was a special op forces therapist. Her job was to keep the soldiers from killing themselves when they got home, right? And she had 13 suicides in her tattoos of all the soldiers that had committed suicide. And she got a brand new tattoo and had cellophane on it and was sitting in my bar. And it was a guy that she made the mistake of getting emotionally involved with. And he committed suicide. That was my first tattoo interview.
Wow.
And I went, oh my goodness, how did I miss this? Right?
It seems to align with your quote where you say tattoos are confessions in search of a confessor. So it really sounds like people are, putting these on their bodies because they want to tell a story. They're wanting someone to ask them.
That people would tell the secrets of their soul if I could approach with dignity and respect and hold a space. They gave me ground intelligence that changed my character. And I was trained to be a talker. I didn't have the muscles to be a listener. And tattoos trained me to be a better listener for one reason. The longer I listened, the more discoveries I was rewarded with. And so the tattoo trained me to hold space, to shift from listening to reply to listening to hear. And I think we bumped into an epic phenomenon that's happening in our time and space. I mean, it's weird at some level that everybody's writing all over themselves, right?
Uh-huh. And what percentage, you said quite a large percentage of people in the United States have a tattoo, at least one?
In the West, it's 40+%. In Austin, Texas, it's 75%. Or Portland, Oregon, or San Francisco, or Richmond, Virginia. I was just in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm walking down the street and I don't have a tattoo. And it's like, they're looking at me like, they're pointing at me. And they're like, you see that guy, he doesn't have tattoos.
You kind of feel judged. No, it does enlighten me because you would think, I guess stereotypically that, you would be someone who would judge people with tattoos possibly. So the fact you're doing the complete opposite of that and you're wanting to hear people's story and it brings you joy and you care and they can see that you care is a testimony in itself. I know that you've done over 10,000 interviews around the world. Do you see similarities or like a pattern and different types of culture with the tattoos at all?
If I ponder it long enough and hold it, each region of the country in the United States, tattoos are a little different. But what I found is every country that I've gone to study tattoos, there's something unique under them. Like Emma, I went to Indonesia for 2 months to study tattoos because I could. And I think this is what we found, that there was a conversation going on in the youth. Now, it's the largest Muslim country, right? And they're officially against tattoos, but all throughout the islands, they're tattoo artists, right? So one is there are countries that have outlawed tattoos, but still have tattoo artists, like South Korea, or Indonesia. But what we think we found under Indonesia tattoos is this conversation: am I radical or moderate Islam? And I found that very interesting. And it was a conversation that the elders and the patriarchs and the mullahs couldn't see because it was hidden under a tattoo. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I love what Emma said about sometimes we expect people who are followers of Jesus, like you are, former pastor, to judge a tattoo, or simply, as you said, to just say, do I like that or not? Do I agree or not? Should they do that or not? Or that's weird. the idea of seeing it as something else. What is it you see it as now?
Well, let me tell you how bad a judger I am first, okay?
Okay.
So I'm driving in Bethesda, Maryland, and I'm driving down, and once you do tattoo research, you can see them a quarter mile away. They find you. It's an amazing thing. I don't look for tattoos anymore. They find me. And I saw this young woman, probably about Emma's age, walking down, and on her neck was tattooed a bag of Skittles candy. And I thought to myself, what dummy would do that? What is their parent? I go all over the world going, don't judge, be thoughtful, hold space. I was judging her, and I tried to find a place to park my truck, and I'm running to find her, right? And I'm like out of breath. And I'm looking all over for her, and I find her in a Starbucks, and I come up to her, and I'm this creaky mouth breather. I'm like this because I'm out of breath. And I walk up to her and I go, I like your tattoo. And I'm completely lying. Right? And she looks at me like I'm about ready to call security. And I said, I'm a tattoo researcher, and I handed her my card, and she looked at it and had all the people at her table look at it. And it's this nervous pause, right? And my heart, I was trying to guard this judgmental spirit in me. And she looks at me, and she put her hand on the tattoo and rubbed it, which often means they're willing to go underneath it when they rub it. And she said, the last time I saw my father alive, he threw me a bag of Skittles.
Wow.
And my little judgmental soul, I crawled back to my truck, and I thought, what a gift. What an instruction. So I want to say something like this. A researcher has to always be aware of the judgment muscle. Because just when you think it's not there, it'll come up and fill the space. What are you thinking, Emma?
You went from judging and you were kind of brought with shame a little bit, but I think that always puts us in our place. God says, look, there's no need to ever judge. Kind of softens our heart a little bit that you met that lady, because you were supposed to, and she probably has no idea her significance on your life, but here you are today talking about it, and I think that's beautiful.
I'm thinking this. Let me see if I believe it. One of the ways that you've entered the zone is how much you cry after the interview. And I believe tears are prayers, by the way. And a case can be made for that. And there's a passage in Isaiah that said this, God is speaking, I have put your tears in a container. Guess what a tattoo is? It's a container for tears. I don't lean into tattoo research because I'm a good researcher or I'm noble or I'm just good at this. The discoveries reshape my character and give me energy for the next one.
The book called The Confessor. How did I miss this? You're talking about how you see the image of God in people, often through their tattoos.
I've been embedded in a blues bar for 10 years. I've done about 10,000 interviews. Here's one of the things that happens inside of me. Every day I grow in deeper respect of the image of God in the non-Christian. It's there. It's thinking and discovering. In the back narrative, it's pondering, where did I come from? Why am I here? What happens after I die? But I'm rarely invited into that back narrative because I'm not a trusted individual. But tattoos are portal. They're stained glass windows into the secrets of the soul. And it's understanding the mind of the image of God is in this spiritual conversation all the time. But we talk to people like they don't have the image of God in them. And as a result, we tend to steal their dignity rather than respect it.
Question we're probably all wondering. Do you have any tattoos?
I have one. I've been a tattoo researcher for 10 years without a tattoo, and I don't know how I got away with that, Emma. And I think the way I got away with it is after a while, they realize I am fascinated by ink and they give me a pass, or they just don't ask the question. But I took a team of 10 people to the Daytona bike rally. It's my third time there, and it's 600,000 bikers. It's really not a bike rally. It's a tattoo festival with bikes, is what it is. So I walk in a tattoo studio down in Daytona, and they said, "Are you that guy on TikTok?" And I go, "Yeah." They said, "What do you want?" They said, "Whatever you need, we'll get you." And then the owner, Argyle, said, "We're going to put a tattoo on you." And I said,
Did it
"Yeah,
sound
no."
like a choice?
Yeah. And I said, "Yeah, no." And he said, "Let's walk out to the stoplight," which was right outside the studio. And when somebody comes up, we knock on the window and say, "What tattoo should he get?" And
Oh, you really didn't have a choice.
I went, "No." We walked out, knocked on the door. They were marine biologists. They said, "Put a stingray on him." Goes, "Good." So they walked back in. He put it on me. And so it's a stingray, and it represents this stealth presence at the Daytona bike rally with my research teams, where we get up close to the tattoo and it tells it's its secret. So that's the story of my tattoo.
So how was the reaction, the response of the bikers? Did you find anybody there who wanted to, do a confession, so to speak?
We tend not to understand what this word confession is. We reduce it down to one thing, tell me your sins. And confession is actually any secret of the soul, your hopes, your hurts, your story, just processing out loud of whatever's in the soul. And God didn't design the soul to hold secret. They get too heavy. It's like one of those pickup trucks that you see driving on the highway that has way too much junk in the bed, and so it's dragging on the ground. That's what a secret does to the soul. So, a tattoo is a secret looking for a listener, a confession looking for a confessor. And you touch a tattoo and it has energy under it. It's spring-loaded. Now, a biker tattoo, and I'm going to say something kind of a bad word. A biker tattoo tends to have this dynamic. It gives you a middle finger first, and then they cry. It's like a whipsaw, because how dare you ask me? Oh my gosh, I need to tell you. And that often is a biker tattoo that we found. The last Daytona bike rally, which by the way is starting this week in Daytona. Why are we not there?
Or packing your bags after this interview.
But biker tattoos are very interesting, because the whole bike thing and the whole tough guy thing is often the armor covering up a hurt and a secret. And I'm thinking of this one giant biker. He was like 6'5", 320 pounds. And I'm like, you can understand why I'm nice to him. But I walked up to him and I said, "Dude, I like your ink." And he looked at me like, you have about 3 seconds to tell me why you're talking to me. And I said, "I'm a tattoo researcher. Do you have 30 seconds? And he goes, "I have 15. And I said, "Tell me about something." And he looked at his tattoo and he started telling me about the death of his child. And he leans on me and he puts his arms around me and starts crying. And I'm like, dude, you're crushing my bones. And he's on top of me, right? And it was that whipsaw of stay away or you're going to get hurt. Please come ask me. And underneath biker tattoos are some of the greatest stories of humanity. So that's one of the reasons why we go.
So if our listeners are thinking, this is, just kind of a mind-blowing, entirely new approach to talking to people in the world. You call it the wild, I believe, the world outside the church. Is this something you would encourage people to try, or what's the first step in becoming more aware?
Yeah. Before you climb a mountain, you got to work up to it, right? And I'm thinking this with a tattoo interview. The first phase of a tattoo researcher is confusion. What is that? Right? And it's understanding that our education system, especially in the evangelical world, could only ask the question, do I agree or disagree with the tattoo? We were unable to get to the question, what are they? So we meet people at their confusion. That's the starting place. But then the next phase after that is curiosity. And here's one of the ideas that instigates curiosity is there's a story under there. And one of the reasons why I can walk up on a god-awful tattoo and say, I like your ink, because I know there's a story under there, right? And some of the most god-awful tattoos have caused the most tears in me. Curiosity includes, can you just see them, not even encounter them? Can you compliment one and then observe your own soul as to whether you're being honest? But there's a third phase, which is clarity. And I say to people, it takes time to understand what a tattoo is long before you use it as a springboard to give a presentation. A tattoo is so sacred and so special. And often the owner of the tattoo is not aware what's in the basement underneath until someone provides a space for them to process out loud right in front of you. Okay, Al, cut to the chase. How do you begin to get clarity? Do 100 tattoo interviews to find out what they are. And that's a time commitment. This happened to me, Ginny. After I did my first tattoo interview, I was in shock. After I did 10, I was an expert. After I did 100, I knew that the world would start asking me to talk on radio shows. After I did 500, something started shaking that maybe I didn't quite understand what they were. After I did 1,000 tattoo interviews, I realized I knew nothing. And so a tattoo is as philosophical and theological and spiritual as you can think and more. It's not me interviewing the tattoo. The tattoo interviews my character.
This is something that feels a little different, right? I mean, you said, and I was taught, you present information to a person. Here's the gospel. You see if they receive it. If not, oh well, move on to the next person. And this is not that.
This is not that. And I live in a world where it's all incremental, and it comes with pastoring people in the wild. I was at my bar last night and Judy said, Pastor Al, I can't believe that stuff. And I said, it's okay. We'll get there when we do. And that was enough for her. That was enough for her.
Wow. Well, this has been so enlightening and interesting. We want to have you back to talk more about living in the wild and all the other subjects that you're researching.
Well, I love your podcast. Wow. I love you guys as a team. And if I could be of any use, I'm ready.
We'll let you know when we get our matching tattoo.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Maybe that's our third video.
Thank
Love
you,
it.
Al.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.
Tell others about the podcast.
And for more information on today's guest, check out our show notes.
Until next time.